Long before history was written, a war shook the heavens and split the earth. This is the Mahabharata, not just a story, but a cosmic saga of gods, warriors, curses, and fate. A battle between Dharma and Adharma, truth and betrayal, where every choice shapes eternity. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where forgotten legends are brought back to life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and turn on the bell icon and follow the Whispers of Destiny. The halls of the Maya Sabha, now a living miracle carved from illusion and celestial symmetry, glisten with the reflected light. The polished floors mirror not only the grandeur of Indraprastha but the soul of its king. Yudhishthira, the son of Dharma, sat motionless upon the throne, not in sloth, but in stillness, lost in a rising tide of thought. His court had dispersed, but the weight of rulership never left. It clung to him like sacred ash, invisible but heavy. Outside, the monsoon wind carried the scent of wet earth. Priests chanted distant hymns. The river Yamuna shimmered like molten silver beneath the sky. From within the marble-pillared corridors, a solemn figure emerged. Vyasa, the island-born sage, knower of past, present, and yet to be. His steps made no sound. His eyes, ageless and grave, scanned the king, and his brothers already had gathered behind him. Bhima the powerful, Arjuna composed but curious. Nakula and Sahadeva were quite twins, like the twin flames of wicked fire. Draupadi stood nearby, watchful and dignified, draped in shadow. Krishna leaned lightly against a distant pillar, unseen by most. His expression unreadable, half-lidded eyes fixed on Yudhishthira, now with doubt but silent encouragement. No greetings were exchanged. Vyasa raised his hand and uttered only one decree: let the Rājasūya be performed. A stillness fell. Yudhishthira lowered his gaze. To perform the Rājasūya is to summon the weight of all four directions. It is not victory that must be claimed, but recognition. And no king can rise as emperor unless the land itself bows. And no shadow dares to linger. But one shadow did. Jarasandha. The name hovered in the room like a tremor, unspoken but known. From the far edge of the hall, Krishna's smile grew by a whisper. It is his time, he says. Before battle, one must understand the storm. Before judgment, one must unveil the cause. King Brihadratha, the noble monarch of Magadha, aged and sorrowed, stood beside his two queens, draped in fine silks but with empty wombs and lonelier hearts. His line, though virtuous, stood doomed to end. He sought a forest hermitage where the fierce sage Chandrakaushika meditated, surrounded by fire altars. His penance melted mountains. Pleased by the king's humility, the sage handed him a single fruit, shining with divine potency. But Brihadratha, torn between his queens, did the justest thing. He split it in two, offering half to each. Months passed. The palace waited in nervous joy since the queens were pregnant after eating the fruit. Then, screams. Two malformed infants were born. One bore a head and a torso, and the others legs and hips, both lifeless, cold and unnatural. The queens fainted, the king wept. The kingdom was horrified. In shame, the halves were cast into the forest to rot and buried. But the forest held secrets. Jada, a Rakshasi with a twisted soul and unknowable age, wandered the woods that night. She stumbled upon the halves, pulsating faintly, still warm. Curious, she bought them clothes. The halves fused with the snap of flesh and pulse. The infant cried. Startled, Jara carried in the mysterious child to the palace gates and vanished into the wind. The child was taken in. The kingdom gasped. The king rejoiced, and he was named Jarasandha, which meant joined by Jara. Time passed. The boy grew unnaturally tall and unnaturally fast. He crushed pebbles in his fists as a child, tore bull horns as a youth. He laughed when fire burned him. Sages saw almonds in his footprints. They warned, "This is not a gift. This is a convergence of things that should have remained apart. But the king, blind with love, silenced them. Jarasandha rose to power. He defeated the kings of Anga, Vanga, Kalinga, Vidarbha and Pundra. He seized the gates of Chedi, enslaved Mithila, and marched across rivers with elephants dipped in blood. He created iron prisons beneath his palace. He conquered and imprisoned 86 kings, not to ransom, but to sacrifice. They were to be offered to Mahadeva in a perverse Yajña, one born not of Vedas, but fear, and no one stopped him. But dread has its boundary, and fate was at its edge. In Indraprastha, at moonlight, Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna met atop a palace terrace. The Yamuna reflected stars, torches flickered like constellations. Bhima stood like a pillar, muscles coiled, breathing slow. Arjuna's finger tapped the edge of his robe, his mind already moving 3 steps ahead. Krishna traced a triangle in a spilled sesame oil on stone. At its center, Magadha. 3 points, 3 warriors. He outlined the plan, now it's words, but silence. We go as Brahmanas, unarmed, unannounced, and we offer him the duel he does not expect. Bhima's eyes flashed, Arjuna simply nodded. Krishna plucked a braid of grass from the terrace. This can become thunder, if Dharma wills it. And so they walked, not as kings, not as heroes, but as silent, wearing feet. Through thick forests where peacocks screamed at dusk, through barren roads where vultures circled above the memory of war, across rivers by broken rafts where deer stared unafraid. Villagers offered them fruit, old sages bowed. Some whispered they looked like warriors, others said one of them glows. Bhima crushed rocks beneath each step, yet walked gently. Arjuna slept lightly even under the stars. Krishna remained still at every fire, staring into flames as if reading the threads of time. At last they reached the iron gates of Girivarja. No fear, no hesitation. They knocked, and the lion awoke. The gates creaked open, no fanfare, no ceremony. 3 strangers entered, clothed not in armor but in the modest garb of wandering brahmanas. No weapons, no ornaments, just feet hardened by pilgrimage and purpose. Krishna, serene yet unreadable. Bhima, a mountain hidden beneath robes. Arjuna, the quiet flame focused as drawn breath. The guards, battle-scarred and stern, gave them long, lingering looks. They allowed entry, but now without uncertainty. There was something off, a heaviness about the stillness in these men's steps, as if they were not guests, but verdicts. Inside the royal court of Girivarja, it was perpetually dusk. Heavy curtains of black and red silk draped the windows, not allowing only filtered light. The scent of burnt sandalwood mingled with iron, both from weapons and blood. The throne room was vast, vaulted, flanked by iron pillars etched with the images of past conquests. Each one depicted Jarasandha's victories, kings kneeling, cities in flames, elephants falling. But the centerpiece was the throne itself, a slab of dark stone, jagged and raw, not carved in beauty, but hewn in defiance. Upon it sat the ruler, Jarasandha. He sat with his spine straight, torso bare, adorned in dhoti of black silk. His broad chest bore scars like medals. His hair was coiled tightly atop his crownless head, and his wrists were wrapped in coils of iron. He did not frown, he did not smile. He just simply stared. The 3 stepped forward. Their steps were calm, measured. They bowed not with servility, but with precision. They offered respect, not submission. Jarasandha did not rise. He motioned for a seat, but no one sat. The air became dense. A servant stepped forward with garlands, attempting to place them around the necks of the guests. It was a ritual, formality for visiting brahmanas. But as the garland was placed around Krishna's neck, it slid off, untwisting, falling to the floor. An omen. A subtle shift ran through the court. Ministers exchanged glances. Jarasandha narrowed his gaze. But Krishna, calm as ever, met Jarasandha's gaze without blinking. No fear, no arrogance. He did not speak loudly, he did not plead. He simply let the truth unfold. A challenge, a duel, not of armies, not of kingdoms, but of men. The ministers gasped, courtiers leaned forward, some guards gripped their spears. Jarasandha finally stood, and when he rose, it was as though a mountain shifted. He stepped down from the throne, each footfall echoed like a strike of a drum. He walked to them, face to face. He scanned each man. First Krishna, calm, unreadable, then Arjuna, alert but steady, and finally Bhima. The gaze held. Something ancient passed between them, recognition of equals, of forces. Jarasandha smiled, a warrior smile, neither friendly nor mocking, simply real. And then, without words, he pointed at Bhima. Bhima did not flinch. His hands remained folded. His eyes did not burn, they glowed with purpose. Krishna gave a slight nod, barely perceptible but unmistakable. Arjuna stepped back. The ministers moved. The guards stepped aside. The duel was agreed not in courts, not with words, but in the unbroken gaze between two titans. The duel would be arranged outside the city in the clear field near the east gate where executions once occurred. The earth, cracked and dry, remembered blood. It would remember again. But what it would now witness was not the punishment of the weak. It would be the trial of the strongest. No audience gathered, no drums beat. The battlefield was scarred by silence. The only witness was the sky, shrouded in gray. At its heart stood two giants. Bhima, son of the wind, his body bruised but unbending, stood striped of armor, dressed only in simplicity. No sword, no mace, just raw power and unshakable resolve. Jarasandha, muscles like stone, his skin oiled in ash and sandalwood. His breath, calm but fiery, stood like a wall. Behind them, Krishna and Arjuna stood like statues. Neither spoke, neither moved. Only the wind danced around them, nervous and sharp. The duel began, no signal, no announcement. Only two warriors charging, a meeting of titans. Their first clash echoed like thunder across the plain. Fists struck ribs, elbows struck jaws, knees buckled earth. Birds scattered from nearby trees due to the sound. Dust rose in spirals, the very air cracked with the force of their limbs. Each strike was like a hymn to raw, ancient strength. Hours passed, then days. The sun burned, then set and rose again. They fought through daylight, through starlight, under clouds and wind. Neither spoke, neither yielded. They drank only water between bouts. They ate nothing, slept on bare ground, and then returned to fight again. On the seventh night, Bhima's arm hung heavy, shoulder bruised black. On the 10th, Jarasandha's leg dragged, his breath, shuddering, but neither let pain break form. Each strike they delivered was not just an attack, it was a question. Who will fall first? Whose breath will be the last? The duel had become ritual, a sacred, brutal yajña of flesh. On the 14th day, the wind changed. The sky grew pale, overcast. Bhima's body trembled, not from exhaustion, but from resolve reaching its edge. He looked to Krishna, and Krishna, silent till now, stepped forward. He bent slowly, picked up a small single twig from the dust. With delicate fingers, he broke it into two pieces. Then he flung them apart, one to the left, one to the right, in opposite ways. No words, but Bhima understood. He roared and he surged forward, fury renewed. Not rage, not desperation, but clarity. He lifted Jarasandha one final time. The air held its breath. Then with a cry that tore the sky, Bhima tore him apart. Ripped his body into two halves, arm pulling east and west. The halves dropped, twitching, pulsing. For a moment they shimmered. A glow began at the torn flesh, a hint of magic. Ancient, stubborn and unnatural, trying to rejoin. Bhima saw it. and in a single move he flung one half far to the east and one to the far west. They stilled. No more shimmer, no more rejoining, only silence. Jarasandha was dead. The earth, long cracked and bruised beneath their feet, now lay quiet. Below the palace, the chains that held 86 kings, some silver, some iron, some bone, snapped. Doors opened, dark cells breathed light. Weak, hollow, but not broken men emerged one by one, cautiously, painfully, to the field where Jarasandha lay. They saw Bhima, they saw Krishna. They did not speak. They knelt, not to a conqueror, but to liberation. Krishna looked to Bhima, and for a moment, a rare moment, he smiled. Not the smile of mischief, not the smile of divinity, but the smile of a man who has seen Dharma prevail. The field of battle lay still. Bhima, still broad-streaked but serene, stood beside the pyre of Jarasandha. His face bore no triumph, no pride, only the quiet calm of one who had done what had to be done. Krishna performed the rites. With water, grass, and flaming branch, he offered the body back to time, not as an enemy, but as a being whose purpose was now complete. The 86 kings who were freed stood before the three warriors, their hands pressed in namaskara, and they spoke not aloud but with gaze alone. We give you not our submission but our alliance, not to fear but to dharma. Chariots rolled, flags were raised. The people of Magadha, shocked and silent, lined the streets as the three warriors left the city. No guards escorted them. They were no longer intruders. They were fire that had passed through a forest and left the soil fertile. Krishna riding at the front, Bhima seated upright, and Arjuna, ever watchful, rode behind, silent but aware. The sky changed as they moved west, from storm to sunlight, from dread to wind-borne chants. Every village they passed, the people whispered, Jarasandha is no more. The sons of Dharma ride east, and the world changes. Yudhishthira stood at the palace gates, not as a king, but as a brother. He had not slept. His robes were unadorned. The moment Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna returned, he stepped forward, not to question, not to praise, but to embrace. Bhima bowed his head and said nothing. Krishna simply smiled and placed a single blade of kusha grass in Yudhishthira's hand. It was a sign. The last obstacle had fallen. The land transformed. Brahmanas and Ritviks from across Aryavarta arrived, bringing scrolls of ancient Yajña procedures. Massive altars of bricks were laid in precise geometric yantras. Sacred wood was imported from the forests of Naimisha and Gandhamadana, untouched by sin. White forests and unblemished and serene were tied beneath banyan trees as offerings. The Maya Sabha itself transformed from a hall of judgment to a temple of invocation. The kings, freed from Magadha, each in their own attire, arrived one by one, bearing tribute not just of gold and gems, but of loyalty. Krishna moved among them like air, silent, guiding every detail, from fire placement to the order of the chant, ensuring every ritual aligned with cosmic rhythm. But not all faces welcomed it. Far to the northwest, in the palatial corridors of Hastinapura, covered with lined pillars and curtained in silk, Duryodhana sat in shadow. A scroll lay open before him, sent by royal courier. It bore words, Jarasandha is slain, the Rājasūya shall be performed. You are invited. His hand tightened around the edge of the scroll. The gold armrest of his ivory chair bent beneath his grip. A thin line of blood ran from his palm. He did not notice. In the mirror nearby, his reflection stared back, but it was not him. Something darker looked through his eyes now. The throne of Dharma had risen, but in its reflection, envy had awakened. The Yajña would soon begin, but its flames would reveal not just gods, but ghosts.